everybody, it's Amber the Cosmic Hippie here, and today I'm going to be doing a video that's a little bit different than what I usually do. Usually you guys are used to seeing me talk about something related to health or wellness or plants or something to that matter, but today I'm actually going to go down a rabbit hole with you guys, a little bit of a rabbit hole related to the Buga Sphere. So, for those of you who have no idea what the Buga Sphere is, that is exactly why I am doing this video today, right now. And I'm actually doing this completely differently than how I typically do my videos because usually there's a whole bunch of theatrics and, I have the background set up and all this stuff, my costuming and everything. But honestly, today I kind of want to just try something different. I want to have a conversation with you guys. I want to start a conversation, I should say. So, with that being said, I'm going to state all the facts as well as I've come across them related to the Bugosphere. I do have a couple of questions that I want to hypothesize, and not so much hypothesize, but a couple of questions that I want to posit and see what you guys have to say about it, whether you've been thinking about these things or not. Or if you have any actual factual information related to these questions, that would be awesome too. I'm going to try my best to not sound like a conspiracy theorist or, state things that haven't already been proven scientifically. So, yeah, to begin, I'm just trying to figure out where to even start because I've literally been taking notes. So, yeah, for those of you who don't actually know me, like, most people think that I'm a very social, like, always out there in the world type of person, but in reality, I'm usually at home doing research, reading, and going down rabbit holes such as this one. And having been in the rabbit hole conspiracy theory realm for probably like 3 decades at this point, I've come to learn certain like spidey senses to kind of guide me as to figure out whether or not what I'm hearing is true, whether it's just some legitimate conspiracy theory that has no factual basis whatsoever, something that's like in between column A and column B, and something that's like way too true that it's being suppressed. And that's what I'm starting to believe the Bugosphere is, honestly. What brought me to even wanting to do this video, as I mentioned, is that I brought up some of these facts to some of my very close friends and colleagues, people who are in the, for lack of a better word, the UFO realm of belief. And not even they had heard of the Bugosphere. So, for whatever reason, this information is being suppressed. And I'm really trying to not sound like a conspiracy theorist person, but I don't think it's going to work out too well because this does sound like a conspiracy theory. But I'm telling you guys, this is real life and this is really, really happening. So, let me just get to the point because I have a lot of notes to get through. Notes. So, and I'm also going to explain some of these more like scientific concepts as well, like as a homeschool mom can do. So let's see. So I'll just start like what the Bugosphere itself is. So the Bugosphere is literally one of now 5 spheres that have been recorded, just literally, it's going to sound ridiculous, but it's been recorded flying around in the sky in different parts of Columbia. The one that I'm referring to specifically, the Buga Sphere, was discovered in Buga, Columbia. Hence the name. So the sphere itself, I'm going to be reading off my notes. That way I know I'm sticking to the facts. So the sphere itself was found by, I'm not sure if he was an actual farmer, but it was found on a farm by a gentleman named Jose Restrepo back in March of this year. And he saw it basically like levitating around, just zipping around in the sky. And what made him start to record the video was that he actually heard like this buzzing electrical sound, behind him. So he turned around and he saw this sphere just like doing its thing. So obviously that's not normal. And he was able to capture some of this on video. And apparently the sphere at one point hits the electrical wires of the area and it just falls to the ground. Like it loses all sense of control and just crash into the a field. So when it crashed into the field, after a couple of minutes or maybe a couple of hours, I forgot what he said. Basically, the grass all around where it landed didn't die. It literally like desiccated. It looks like it just dried out. I'm here in Florida, so it looks like you forgot to turn on the sprinklers, basically, where it was like a radius around where the sphere actually landed. The grass just like whoop, lost all sense of life. Um, so let me just see. He heard it humming, saw the source, and oh, so after he kept it, he said within 15 minutes of it landing, apparently, is when the grass dried out. So he kept the sphere to himself for a couple of days, and he said that while he was like holding the sphere like in his possession, he didn't feel like it was some type of malicious entity or like something coming to get us or anything like that. He actually said the complete opposite. He said that he felt a sense of like calm and peace. So good news there, I guess, if you want to go into the UFO realm. I'm not. Please, I'm not. Um, so he said that. So after a couple of days of him like having it in his possession, he didn't know what to do with it. Obviously, it's this metal ball. Oh, I guess I should tell you the actual dimensions and what it looks like. So the Buga Sphere is, think of like a slightly larger beach ball, I guess. They said it's about 12 inches around in diameter, and it's solid metal. So after he had this sphere in his possession for a while, for a few days, he didn't know what to do with it. But luckily, his cousin is an engineer. His cousin is David Velez, I believe. Yeah, David Velez. So he gave it to his cousin, the engineer, to say pretty much like, hey, cuz, can you do some tests on this thing to like tell me what it is? I found it. I don't know what it is. It seems really cool. What is this thing? So Mr. Velez immediately did like a visual inspection of the sphere, and upon doing so he saw like literally no seams where, let's say, somebody put the two halves together and then welded it or anything like that. There were no seams whatsoever. And what was interesting, so now this is where we start going down into like the interesting stuff. So what was interesting was that when he went to go perform the test that he was able to facilitate in his lab, because he has an engineering lab with different types of testing equipment. So he was able to perform certain tests, but eventually it moved on. So in his lab, he was able to do he tried to do a couple of tests, but what he very quickly found out was that some of these tests literally couldn't be performed because the material itself that the sphere was made out of, like the shell itself, was of a consistency and of a metal composition that was just not known to man. I don't know how else to say it. He couldn't really like penetrate it with certain visualization tools. And yeah, it was just, I'll get into what it's actually made out of later. But for long story short, he couldn't do certain tests that should have been very easy to perform. So what he was able to perform were different types of like sound frequency testing, and he was able to determine like that it was some type of aluminum, but that's the extent he got to it. But as far as the sound testing was concerned, when he went to test it, it was emanating different radio frequencies, but in a consistent pattern. So it would go from 80 hertz to 120 hertz to 75 back to 80, 120, 75 back to 80. So like that in and of itself is not normal. So that was already like a little flag for him, like, oh, not only is it giving off some type of radio signal, it's also doing it in a sequence, in a pattern. Not natural. Now this was what actually made me kind of like pay attention. So I did hear about this thing back in March, and honestly, I kind of brushed it off because I thought it was just part of like the whole the drone psyop conspiracy thing that we all now know was actually our own government. That might have just now gotten me in trouble by saying it out loud, but it is like public knowledge that the drones were part of a Northrop Grumman psyop. our own people, not our own people, not our own government. Our government didn't know about it either. That's a whole other rabbit hole story. If you guys want to go down that one, let me know. But yeah, our own government didn't actually know what was going on because Northrop Grumman and whatchamacallit, why can't I think of the other company now? Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works. They performed a psychological operation, a psyop, on all of us to see how we would react to an unknown threat. Different rabbit hole though. We're not going there. But so when I heard about the Buga Sphere back in March, my husband actually brought it to my attention, and I literally brushed him off like, "Oh, that's just somebody trying to piggyback off the drone thing." Silly me, because it's not. This is a real thing. So back to what I was saying, what made me actually start to really truly pay attention was when Dr. Stephen Greer got involved with this, because I have been following Dr. Stephen Greer since at least 2001, because I do believe in UFOs and I have had experiences with that world. And I won't get into that either, but I actually referenced Dr. Greer's work many times in a lot of my research papers in school and high school. So when I saw his name start to appear in relation to the Buga Sphere research that was being performed, that's when my ears perked up. Because he doesn't waste his time on stuff, nor does he risk his reputation. So what both he and Mr. Velez found, because eventually Dr. Greer was allowed to perform certain tests on the sphere as well. So what both he and Dr. Velez found was that the weight of the sphere actually started to change when Mr. Jose Restrepo, the guy who found it, when he first found the sphere, it only weighed 2 kilograms. And then after a few days, it went up to 6.65 and then 9.9 and 10. And it just keeps getting heavier, which makes zero sense whatsoever. Mass shouldn't change. So that was interesting to me. And let's see, what else did Mr. Velez see? So yeah, he couldn't penetrate it with his tools. And oh, the other thing that I found interesting, and what made me start to believe that this was not necessarily like some conspiracy theory or fake news story or somebody trying to piggyback or make up a, clickbait, was the fact that other government agencies started to get involved with this research. Specifically, they were trying to steal the Buga Sphere. Imagine that. And it's on video. Like, I'm not even making this stuff up. Like, they actually have security footage of 2 gentlemen dressed as police officers attempting to remove the sphere from the university that it was being held at. Crazy stuff. So yeah, they so I didn't actually mention this to you guys. So what's also really cool about the Buga Sphere and why you probably have not heard of it is because right now it is in the possession of the science community, no government entities. Yes. So with that, a lot of government entities have been trying to suppress the fact that this even exists. They've been trying to play it off as some type of UFO conspiracy theory, rabbit hole type of thing. But in reality, the science is what's been scaring them into silence. The science into silence. So, Mr. Velez, before he handed it over to the next set of folk who are performing the tests on it, he concluded that the anti-gravitational system, the system that, for lack of a better word, actually allowed the sphere to levitate and fly around in Buga, Columbia, he assumes that when the sphere hit those power lines, that's when it lost its anti-gravitational system. So that's why it fell to the ground. And he believes that because he believes, and a lot of other scientists now believe, that the anti-gravitational system works more on the concept of static versus like literal like anti-gravity. How can I'll figure out a way to explain that when we get to that part. So after Mr. Velez did his tests and whatnot, Jaime Maussan, who is a individual who's really big in telecommunications and media, he caught wind of all of this, and he helped them get the Buga Sphere over to the University of Mexico, which, you know, they have more sophisticated testing equipment. So they performed their own tests, one of which was the metallurgy test. So they tested like what it's actually made out of. Um, they chose 4 different zones on the sphere, and I'm going to actually use something. I'm a homeschool mom, so I like using props around the house to exemplify things. Here we go. We're going to use my Christmas decoration here, which just so happens to be silver, so that works out pretty cool. So imagine this is our Buga Sphere. So when they did the metallurgy tests, they actually chose 4 different zones to test it. They chose the north and south, and then they also chose the equator. And then around the equator, they chose like not they chose, there were, and you'll see on any pictures that you Google, there's a whole bunch of different little dots going like perfectly around the center of the Buga Sphere. I'll get to those later too. They mean stuff. So in order to perform the metallurgy test, they basically like polished each of the zones really, really well, and then they use their they have a device that can test like the composition, the metal composition of whatever the subject is. So when they tested each zone, they discovered that certain areas were thicker in composition than others, and also that certain areas were composed of different types of materials. So they found that the northern hemisphere was thicker than the southern, and that the equator itself, the center of it, had different metallurgical properties altogether. And some of these properties included isotopes that were just not known to any earthly metal, like nothing that's actually found here on this planet, which is super cool. But it gets better, folks. So remember those little dots, those little guys that I told you around here? Within them, 2 things happen. This is really bonkers. They discovered cracks, and some of these cracks had materials in them, which, you know, I'll fast forward. Dr. Greer was able to perform some third-party lab tests, and those lab tests came back. He had them carbon dated, and it came back at, what was it, 12,500, yeah, 12,560 years old. So I'll let that sink in for a second. How can anything that's very technological, our Buga Sphere, how can anything that's super technological also be that old, or at least have some type of materials in it that are that old? That's my first question. I do have 1 or 2 theories, but you know, it could be something completely extraterrestrial, completely extra dimensional, and now we're fully down the rabbit hole of aliens, but not little green men aliens, like extra dimensional people, for lack of a better word, may have sent this here. This may be some type of sensor or recording device. Who knows? I'll get to that part later too. Or maybe some old material just so happened to get stuck in there somehow, you know, because it fell to the ground. Who knows? Who knows? All we know is that carbon dating usually does not lie. It's usually super accurate. And the fact that anything came off of this sphere at that age leads to a lot of questions. Not even like rabbit hole questions, just like how questions, like how'd that happen? But we're going to move on because there's even more interesting discoveries that occurred when they did these tests. So also along the equator, they found different different size fiber optics within, like inside this thing, inside the Buga Sphere itself. And they used an electron microscope to see them because that was the only way that they could, you know, see through this alloy. The electron microscope allowed them to see that these little dots actually were different varying diameter fiber optics. Like they have its fiber optic technology inside here as well. I'm saying here, it's the Buga Sphere. The Buga Sphere. So there's fiber optic technology inside the Buga Sphere as well. And what's interesting is that I believe there were, oh man, I don't think I wrote down that number. So please don't come after me for having a wrong number. I think there were 9. I think there were 9. Shucks, I should have wrote that down. I believe there were 9 different fiber optics. It might have been more. I feel like there might have been more. I'm sorry. I don't have that number. But basically, long story short, is that each one of the fiber optic filaments that they found inside were at varying diameters. And for those who don't know how fiber optics and all that kind of stuff works, think of, actually, I can use, here's homeschool mom kicking in. So I can use this as an example. Think of like the different wires and cables we use at home. You wouldn't use a regular telephone cable to try and watch TV because the TV signal won't be transferred through the telephone wire. I hope that makes sense. Like each wire has its own purpose for multiple reasons, because of the amount of data being transferred, the speed of the data being transferred, the type of data being transferred. Each of these things affect or determine, I should say, each of these things determine the thickness that is needed and the composition that is needed for the specific conduit, the wire. So with fiber optics, inside the Buga Sphere specifically, they discovered that the different varying diameters that they found can transmit data such as communication data, atmospheric information, biologic information, like us, biologic, like living life form information. What else? Ultraviolet light frequencies, and infrared, they can detect those 2 things as well, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that is in itself interesting, right? Like, why would a sphere have all of these types of like recording data, recording information in it? But what makes it super duper interesting, and this is where my science brain said, what? Like, I literally had to pause the video when I was listening to Dr. Greer and, all of them review their findings. I literally had to pause the video because, they brought up a good point, and I will use an example again to show you guys this point to really drive it home, is that the way fiber optics work, like right now, a lot of us are transitioning our home and business internets into fiber. So the way that this technology works is it's literally, for lack of a better word, light. It's using light to send data from one point to another. And with that being said, if the line itself is cut or severed, or if there's a blockage or even a kink in the line, that data will not make it to its destination. Like, there has to be a constant pathway for fiber optics to work. So what's interesting about finding fiber optics inside of a sphere that was floating around in the sky is that there's nothing connecting this literally to anything. Like, how, if all of these fiber optic cables were put into this sphere, and if they truly do have the capacity, the capabilities to attain the data that everybody is claiming that they can attain, the atmospheric data and biologic and blah 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 blah, how is that data and this is a real question, guys, if somebody can explain it to me, please do. How is the data that's being recorded I don't know, how is this data from here being sent anywhere? Like, how is that working? Because there's clearly no line of connection anywhere. This guy it was just floating in the sky. Woo! So, like, where'd the data go? If this is a sensor or something, where'd that data go? How does that work? And I'll show you guys a prime example of like my confusion. because maybe you're still not quite getting it. This is selenite. And I always use this when I'm, showing customers how cool like crystals can be. So this is really cool that I can use one of my crystals to describe physics theory, I guess. I don't even know what I should call this. We're having a conversation here, folks. Pretend we're sitting at a table and we're just chatting. I did not practice or rehearse any of this. So I apologize if I'm all over the place, but I just wanted to get this out there and see if anybody can explain certain things for me, because I have questions. So what I was saying is with the fiber optics, so fiber optic cables in general, I guess I can tell you guys that fiber optic cables in general are usually made of like a silica, like a ultra pure silica, which is essentially glass. This, although it looks kind of like glass, it's not made of silica. It's actually made of gypsum. So if anything, this actually conducts light better than fiber optic cables. Imagine that. So keeping that in mind, I will show you exactly why I'm confused as to how, if this guy truly is a sensor sending information elsewhere, how can it send its data without having a continuous line of communication for fiber optics? Obviously, you can send data other ways, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and whatever else is out there now. But the fact that they found fiber optics in the sphere is why I'm sticking to the fiber optics question. So, pretend this is a fiber optic cable. And as I said, the only way that fiber optics typically works is that there's literally no breaks in the line. Data comes in one end and goes to its destination on the other. Simple as that. So pretend this is our fiber optic cable, and I'm going to use my cell phone light to show you. Pretend this is our data source. So we're going to send data. I don't know if you could see. Can't really see because I'm outside, but let's see. We're going to send the data. Actually, I could do it this way. We're sending data through here. And I don't know if you could see, but it is literally illuminating this whole guy. It's illuminating it. So if I put my hand up here, you can see, maybe, there. You can kind of see on my hand, you can see that there's a little circle of light. So pretend my hand is the receiving end of that data, whether it's your phone, your computer, your TV on a fiber optic network. We just switched over from cable internet, now we got fiber. So imagine this is your TV or whatever receiving the data from the source, the cell phone, light. And that little beam of light on my hand would exemplify the data reaching its source. But now what happens as soon as I remove the receiver from that source, that light goes away. So that means this TV is no longer receiving that data. Receiving it, not receiving it. Receiving it, not receiving it. So, putting that into theory, if this guy is floating by itself, how is it receiving the data from the fiber optic cable? Science is science, guys. I don't get that part. So I need someone to explain that to me. And then, so, oh, so another cool thing, and this is going to go into more science, but I'll try and explain it better, is that when they used the electron microscope, they were finally able to see inside the Buga Sphere. And they saw that the nucleus itself, like the center of the Buga Sphere itself, had 3 different densities. And within each density were these fiber optics. So, and then also, when they viewed the Buga Sphere, like the inside of the Buga Sphere, and turned it on its side, and there's pictures, you can Google this too or find it for yourself. center of it, like the actual silhouette of the center of the inside of the Buga Sphere, literally looks just like the Tesla Tower. So for those who don't know what the Tesla Tower was or is, it was a tower that essentially conducted its own, it was its own power source basically. And so the scientists, Jaime and everybody else who's involved, Dr. Greer, they're starting to believe that the Bugasphere works off of some type of similar power source, so like a self-contained power source, that creates a anti-gravitic field that is based off of static electricity, so like the electromagnetic field, and not so much as like a propulsion levitation or anything that's making it fly. It's the complete opposite. It's not flying, it's literally levitating based off of the theory of static electricity and static propulsion. I feel like that would be a really long explanation for me to get into for you guys. So if you want me to explain that, just like comment, I guess, or send me a message and I will gladly explain it. If you want me to do a video, I will, but I'm not going to spend more time on this than it is. We're already a half hour in. But so let me see, are there any other important any other important things? Oh, I didn't even talk about the surface, the etchings. I mean, they're not like super important in terms of like science. I guess they kind of are. So it's kind of counterintuitive because the center of this Buga Sphere is so technological and so sophisticated, but then the exterior shell, like the actual aesthetics of it all, seems to be handmade. So on the exterior, if you ever look at the pictures of this thing, you'll see different like etchings, different symbols on it. These symbols are not part of any known language, any known alphabet, and they've already had the top linguists look at this to try and figure out and decipher what it actually is, like what language it is. And the best that they can come up with is that it's some type of like a proto-Sanskrit language. So proto is a prefix that means like the first. So like they're assuming or they're positing that the etchings on the surface of the Buga Sphere are a language that existed before Sanskrit even existed, which is just like in and of itself. And then what makes it even more interesting is that considering the composition of the sphere itself, that it has no noticeable seams, no like weld markings or nails or pins, or there's literally nothing to show how it is actually put together. It's literally a solid piece of metal. Not aluminum. It's aluminum, but it's like an aluminum that we're not used to seeing. So what makes it interesting is that despite all of that high level technology, the actual symbols seem to have been like hammered in, like literally like manually put onto the surface of this thing. So it's like, why would they do that if they have all this technology where they can literally make a thing without any seams? Why would they not just like engrave those symbols with the same technology? That's a question I have. And then, and I keep saying they because like we don't know exactly who or where this came from. Let's see what else. I think that's about it, honestly, because I'll just start repeating stuff. Yeah. So with that being said, Dr. Greer actually did post, and I printed it out. And you can find this too. I'll actually probably include the link to it. He actually did post his summary of the metallurgical analysis of the Buga Sphere, and this was public about I think like 10 days ago. What day is that? The 17th? Yeah, so like 10 days ago or so. He made all of this data public, and they're trying to keep all of this data public because, you know, the individuals involved believe that this data belongs to all of us, all humankind. It shouldn't be the property of any one government or one entity or one person. They're all working as a collective, which to me is like super awesome to see that our science community is has completely sidestepped all government agencies to do, you know, testing that has no agenda. They just literally are curious and they want to know what this thing is, where it came from, and why potentially it may be here. So they are trying to keep this data public, trying to keep it, out there. But as I'm sure most people who are watching this video have aren't don't know, they didn't even know this thing existed, because all governments are actively working to kind of squish this. And so in Dr. Greer's report, he pretty much goes over the fact that the study itself was done by University of Georgia. They did a carbon-14 test, so that's carbon dating. They carbon dated it back to 12,560 years ago, which is, I think they said it's like, oh God, what is it? Yeah, 8,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. So this Buga Sphere, theoretically, if those tests are 100% accurate, this Buga Sphere existed before the Great Pyramid of Giza even existed. Wrap your mind around that one. And so aside from the aluminum that they found, it also had a lot of elements that were just not known to science, like the human science world, until like the 1800s. So considering this is 12,560 years old, how could a metal that wasn't created or discovered until the late 1800s, early 1900s exist in this thing? That's another question I have. And what's even more puzzling is that some of the alloys and some of the isotopes that they found literally just aren't known. They just don't exist in our periodic table or any type of knowledge bank whatsoever. So once again, that's a question I have. How? Where to come from? How? And then even in aluminum, apparently aluminum itself wasn't industrialized until the late 1800s. So once again, this is 12,560 years old and made mostly of aluminum. And aluminum wasn't actually industrialized and put into production until the late 1800s. How'd that happen? How'd those two come together like that? What else? Oh, that is a good point. And this will be a good segue to my my personal hypothesis, I guess. And I'll wrap this video up because I know you guys are probably like, oh my God, my brain. But so what I find interesting, a couple of things, and I'm probably going to sound a little bit like a conspiracy theorist, but it is what it is. I find interesting the fact that, carbon testing, carbon dating has been inaccurate once or twice that I know of. Not significantly, but it's been off by like a couple thousand years once or twice that I've been aware of in the past. So, there is a possibility that this is not 12,560 years old, which it is what it is. That's fine. It's whatever. But if this truly is that old, then that puts the Buga Sphere here on this planet, on Earth, right around the time that the last ice age occurred. So, if we just entertain that notion for a second, just a second, we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole for just a second, I promise. If we entertain the notion that this thing, this little Buga Sphere, was floating around in our atmosphere 12,560 years ago during the last ice age, and we all know what happened during the last ice age, and then they disappeared or whatever, went dormant, who knows, I don't know. And now all of a sudden they're back. Remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that there are now 5 confirmed videos of Buga Spheres floating around, but the scientific community has only been able to get their hands on 1 of the 5. So if these Buga Spheres, for whatever reason, are becoming active again, that leads me to wonder why. And the first thing that pops into my mind, and here goes the rabbit hole stuff, but the first thing that pops into my mind is Three Eye Atlas. And I know a lot of people have a lot of different theories and a lot of different beliefs as to what Three Eye Atlas is and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going into that at all. But I will stick to the facts that regardless of what it is an object that is in our solar system. It's in our view now, or soon will be tomorrow. Um, it's going to reach perihelion tomorrow, I believe, which is when the sun's gravitational pull is its strongest. It's its strongest on Three Eye Atlas. So I'm interested to see that if once it has passed perihelion, if Three Eye Atlas, continues its course that is currently on, it is what it is. It might get stuck in our solar system and it'll stay in our orbit for a while. Or if it is what some people are saying it is, like a controlled ship, for lack of a better word, a mothership, then chances are it will break that gravitational pull. And at that point, there will be no denying that this is under some type of intelligent control. Either way, this cookie crumbles. The fact of the matter is that a very large item has entered our solar system. And now the Buga spheres are coming to life. So my brain goes into I wonder if the Buga spheres are some type of sensor, like an early warning detection device created by, it's rabbit hole stuff, I'm sorry, but this is just like my theory. And please, by all means, I want everybody to share their theories too, because this is how science works. we post hypotheses, we test them out, we compare data, factual data, and then we come to a conclusion. So right now I am stating my hypothesis. I personally do think that whether these things are truly 12,560 years old or not, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that they do contain sensors that can potentially serve as a planetary early warning detection device, wherein by sensing ultraviolet and radiation, it will know if those two things are reaching levels that are not safe for human physiological composition. The fact that some of these sensors can read biologic data also suggests that it is, for lack of a better word, keeping track on living biological carbon-based entities on this planet, not just humans, but like all life forms, all mammals, who knows. The fact that it also, I didn't even talk about the resonance and the sound. It reacts to the 432 hertz frequency, which is the natural frequency that our bodies resonate with. And this thing resonates specifically with that frequency too. So if it can resonate with even sound, and if it can record sound waves and react to sound waves, that's another indicator to me that is some type of a sensor. And the timing to me, like nothing to me is a coincidence, honestly. And the fact that these Buga spheres are showing up around the same time that a big object has entered our solar system that could potentially shift or alter our planetary well-being, for lack of a better word, leads me to question things. I don't know how else to put it. It leads me to question things. I'm not saying that Three Eye Atlas is a mothership and they're coming to destroy the world or anything like that. I'm literally sticking to the facts of the fact that this Buga sphere has sensors or some type of sensing technology within it, and we have something coming in our purview, in our way, in our area soon, that could potentially impact how our upper atmosphere functions. And And if we also take into consideration the fact that we have been having more solar activity, more geothermal activity, just more weather anomalies and things of that nature, perhaps all of these shifts, planetary shifts, have caused these Buga spheres to become activated again because, as I said, if they are some type of early planetary warning or detection system, maybe they're letting us know that, hey, you guys have crossed the precipice of what your planet can handle, and you might want to start paying attention to what's going on, especially with our ozone layer and whatnot. You know, each time we send up a rocket and each time we pollute the atmosphere, we're causing more and more holes, more and more little cracks in the armor, and each of those cracks allows different rays, different frequencies to affect everything on this planet, gamma rays, radiation, and things of that nature. So if we continue to, carry on as we are, and we continue to harm our upper atmosphere, then yeah, eventually we will feel the effects here on Earth. We have been feeling the effects here on Earth. Our Schumann resonance has been going because of all of the solar activity that's been happening. So, I'd really like to know what you guys think about this now that I've told you that the Buga Sphere even exists. Like, what do you think it is? I mean, obviously it could be a complete hoax, but now that we have independent third-party laboratory testing to prove certain facts, like, the carbon dating, 12,560 years old, the electron microscope that showed us there's fiber optics inside with no beginning or ending point. There's no like detectable propulsion system or anything of that matter. There's no detectable like electrical source whatsoever. So, if this is a man-made item, then that leads to even more questions as to like who made it. Is this another Northrop Grumman, black op? Like, is this another psyops thing? Is this? I'm pretty sure governments have nothing to do with it because that's just how these cookies tend to crumble, as I've come to find out. So the fact that people keep saying, well, why aren't we hearing the president talk about it? It's because he doesn't know about it. He wasn't read into this part of the program. But yeah, so either this thing, this little Buga sphere, and its 5 little comrades that are now on video, either it is man-made, and if so, who made it? And why are they not just like saying, hey, that's mine. That's mine. It's our experiment. We're trying new technology out, blah, blah, blah. Like nobody's claiming, and with proof, can't say nobody's claiming it. Plenty of entities and government agencies have tried to claim that it's theirs and tried to steal it. But there's been no proven owner or proof of origin for this thing. So if it is man-made, why do no government agencies have this knowledge? And conversely, if it's not man-made and it's extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional, which is what I would personally put it at, extra-dimensional, for multiple reasons. I can explain why, like, science would not allow this thing to travel because light can only travel but so fast. And yeah, that's physics again. Won't go down that rabbit hole, but if anything, if this is not from this earth, if this is not an earthly device, then where'd it come from? So either way, the fact that the Buga sphere exists gives us so many questions that are going to probably be left unanswered simply because, there's but only so many tests we can perform with our human technology. But yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think about it. It should be an interesting conversation. And remember, I just stated facts here, folks. I didn't really go down into too many rabbit holes as to like the aliens did it or anything like that. I genuinely want to know from a scientific standpoint, like, how is this thing possible? How can it defy gravity and levitate. I'm not going to say it's flying because flying requires some type of propulsion, and there is literally no propulsion device on this thing. So, how is it levitating? How is it breaking the gravitational field of this planet in order to fly around? Um, Actually, they are trying to figure that out. I just remembered I saw that they are building a device that is essentially going to create a electromagnetic field that's going to, essentially make it spin until it breaks our gravitational. I can explain that too, but yeah, lots of science is involved with this. I guess that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you found any additional factual information. Um, as I mentioned, there are only a handful of scientists currently working on this. There are so many videos out right now that are just full of fake news and propaganda. I beg you, please do not buy into that stuff. Stick to the science, because this could potentially be a discovery that changes all of humankind. And I don't mean to sound like, grandiose about it, but if this technology does pan out to truly be something not from this earth, this dimension, this timeline, um, or not made by, humans existing right now in some secret black site, then this is technology that could potentially change how we do a lot of things, like travel, communication, um, literally everything. So, that's why I made this video today, to bring it to light and to, keep the interest alive, because I feel like our mainstream media is just not addressing this at all, and they're trying to push it off as just a hoax or some type of conspiracy, alien conspiracy. But I'm telling you, this is not. This is like truly science that is developing right now, this very moment. And I would be interested to see that as Three Eye Atlas approaches Earth, I think by December it's supposed to be at its closest to us. I would be interested to see if and how at all the Buga Sphere reacts. Like, does it do anything? That would be really, really cool. So, I'm going to keep you guys updated as much as possible, because, it seems to be like this information is already getting suppressed. But as I come across more, I will share it with you. I invite you all to please go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website, because that is where he is posting all of his research on this, is drstephengreer.com. He is one of the few truly reliable sources for anything related to UFOlogy, disclosure of black op, psyop projects and programs. And yeah, I truly believe we're reaching a point in our history where things are going to change one way or another for one reason or another. So let me know what you think. Do your own research. Check your sources. Most importantly, check your sources. Check the science behind the sources. And yeah, talk to you later, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.